Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories. If you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, that subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, as it all really helps out the channel. And let's dive straight into today's first story. Now today's first story comes from Icy Clouds 456 and it does follow with an update titled, "My family wants me to join them for Christmas after disowning me over 8 years ago." And just a bit of a warning, there is mentions of miscarriage in this story. After being disowned 8 years ago, my family has invited me, my wife, 27 female, and daughter, 1 female, for Christmas. After getting conflicting advice from my friends, one of my buddies told me to post my dilemma here to see what random internet strangers would say. I, 25 male, am the youngest of 4 kids, between my mum, 52 female, and my dad, 54 male. My siblings are, fake names, Michael, 31 male, Sarah, 28 female, and my twin brother Casey, 25 male. For context, growing up, I was the black sheep of the family, and I knew that from a very young age. See, my family is full of athletes. My dad was a star basketball player for a D2 school. My mum played volleyball, Michael played soccer, Sarah played softball, and Casey was the star running back for the football team. I was never really interested in any of those physical sports, but rather I was interested in archery, which my family called a wimpy sport. My parents were always invested in my siblings and rarely ever attended my events, to the point where I basically had to beg them to come to my tournaments. Between the ages of 14 to 16, I had taken part in about 20 tournaments, while my parents only showed up to 1. I was never neglected by them, but they were never emotionally there for me, as they were there for my siblings. And as a teenager, I resented that. Whenever I tried to bring this up to them, they would always call me an attention seeker. But however, this is not why I was disowned from my family. When I was 15, I began dating Amy, now 25 female, who was in the same grade as me at the time. After about 6 to 7 months of dating, I introduced her to my folks and my siblings, and they really liked her. I know I was young, but I could see myself having a future with her. Almost 2 years later, one of Amy's ex-friends told me that she'd been cheating on me for a couple of months. At the time, I didn't know who the guy was, but after confronting her, she told me that it was my twin brother. She basically told me that while at first she loved me, the love she had for my brother surpasses that. Later that day, when I confronted Casey at home, I was so enraged that I sucker punched him and knocked him out. I admit that I should have not gotten violent, but years of resentment towards him and the rest of the family just burst open. In exchange for my family not pressing charges on me, as I could have been tried as an adult in court, I was sent to live with my paternal aunt, 48 female, who at this point was estranged from the family and lived in another city about 2 hours away. From then on, I have not had any contact with them. At first it was tough, but later on, with the support from my aunt and her husband, 48 male, I moved on from wanting a relationship with them. I transferred to a different high school and attended a university in my aunt's city and graduated as an electrical engineer. I later met my wife and got married to her. I, at the time of my wedding, thought about inviting them, but went against it because I did not want any sort of drama at my wedding. From that point, me and my wife bought a house an hour away from my aunt and were blessed with a daughter a year ago. About a week ago, I received a Facebook message from my mother and father wanting to reconnect over Christmas at their house. I told them I would consider it, as I possibly have other plans, but would give them a clear answer soon. Later on, both Michael and Sarah sent me friend requests, which felt weird to me. My wife has told me that if I decided to go, she and my daughter would spend Christmas at my father-in-law's house, and she does not have to deal with unwanted stress as she is 2 months pregnant, and I agree with her. My question to those reading this is that should I go and try to reconcile with family, or should I not? I am very conflicted on what to do. On one hand, they perhaps feel bad about what they did to me and want to apologize for what they did, but on the other hand, perhaps if I go there, they will try to make me apologize to Casey, which I do not want to. Any advice would be helpful. Now the question to me in this one is, why do they want to reconnect with you? Seeing as they're the ones that disowned you from the family, so now suddenly are they feeling guilty about what they've done in the past, or is it just because your wife is now pregnant that they maybe want to see their grandchild? And it almost brings me back to the stories that we used to read on Entitled People, you know, when the family disowns one of the other family members and then eventually wants them to be back a part of the family and because they want an organ or something crazy like that. I hope it doesn't go down that route in the update, but we'll find out in a moment. So we're going to cover a couple of comments first and then we'll move on to that update. But Donna Maranga says, I honestly wouldn't spend Christmas away from my pregnant wife for them. Maybe I'm missing something, but why Christmas? They could have reached out at any time and given you a chance to pick a convenient time as they're the ones trying to amend things. I don't know, it just seems weird to me. I personally wouldn't go unless you desperately want them back in your life. Paisley Viking says, I think you should go another time. Spend Christmas with your wife and child, visit your family at a less stressful time to see if they have any ulterior motives. It might just be about them wanting to see their grandchildren and not so much about you, which would be hurtful to you. Adventurous Sand 6711 says, I can't imagine not spending Christmas without my spouse and child. They disowned you. F them. Spend the time with your family, your real family. And after the new year, decide if you want to rebuild a relationship with your biological parents and siblings. I can't imagine sending my child away. Can you? Can you look at your daughter and imagine a scenario where you would disown her? Fascination Street says, nope. They only want to see your daughter. They have demonstrated no change. They're attempted to gangbomb you so you feel guilty. Nope, nope, nope. To which Kashil's handmaiden replies to that saying, this feels like the correct answer. If they wanted to reconcile, they'd have reached out with an apology rather than just inviting OP to Christmas without any other form of communication. They want to have access to the grandchild. OP, I suggest you also seek support and advice in Our Just No Family, where there's plenty of nice folks who can help you navigate a manipulative family and their tactics. Spend Christmas with your partner and remember you and she are on the same team now, even when it puts you at odds with your blood relations. Now we're going to move on to that update to see what happens next. And again, before we move into the update, just to remind you that it does mention a miscarriage as well. So hi there guys, it's been a rough 2 weeks, but thank you all for your advice and support. This is going to be a really long post. I wanted to post earlier, but some things got in the way. 2 days after Christmas, my wife began to experience unbearable pain in her abdomen area, and she could hardly stand on her 2 feet. Me and her sister, 30 female, rushed to the hospital, where we found out that my wife had suffered a miscarriage, and that the fetus had to be removed right away. Honestly, the worst part for me was explaining to my wife what had happened. Due to complications surrounding the operation, my wife was forced to stay for 2 more days. Honestly, I've been trying to stay strong for my wife and my daughter, but honestly, I'm struggling right now. On to the update of the original post. Most of you commented on the same day I posted, told me to not spend Christmas with them because of the significance of that holiday. I agreed and decided I would spend the rest of the holidays with my wife. They never made time for me, so why should I make time for them? When I text them this, I assumed that they would try to argue with me, but rather they respected my opinion and could not wait to see me after the holidays. I began to do some digging into my family to try to figure out why they have reached out. Michael is a corporate lawyer who works for a major company in my hometown. By looking through his Facebook page, he has 2 daughters and was married to his wife in 2016. Sarah appears to be married to a doctor. She herself 8 years ago was studying to be a nurse, and they have a son together. I have a friend who lives in my hometown and has parents who are friends with my parents. When I asked her about Sarah, she told me that Sarah had divorced her first husband, the one she was dating 8 years ago, after he had committed mail fraud. Casey got married to Amy right after high school, and together they had 2 kids together. I could not exactly figure out what he or his wife does for a living through Facebook, but judging that they bought a big house last year in the midst of a pandemic tells me that they are not really struggling. My dad seems to be going through a midlife crisis, and my mother is really into the wellness community. I then began to list the reasons of why they wanted to possibly reach out to me now. Number 1 is money. Unlikely, because 8 years ago my parents' combined salary was higher than my wife and my salary, and given that my siblings are not struggling financially, makes me think money is not the reason. 2. Organ donation. Could be the case, but seems unlikely, but a Redditor said that it could be that Casey, given he is my twin, would most likely match, and I think it's unlikely because he was tagged in Facebook posts skiing just a week before Christmas. 2. Regarding my daughter. They could possibly be reaching out to me to have a relation to my daughter, but I honestly am not sure. My daughter is not the first granddaughter for my parents, so why they want to meet her? They most likely found out my daughter existed because of my wife's Facebook account was public. She has since privated her account. I then contacted my aunt, the estranged one who took me in, informing her about the situation, and she explained to me why they are reaching out to me after all this time. To understand this situation, you need to understand why my aunt was estranged. My paternal grandpa, 79 male, and grandma, 76 female, had 4 children. My dad was the second oldest and my aunt was the third. My aunt after college came out to her parents as bisexual and began dating her girlfriend. My grandparents immediately disowned her and refused to have any contact with her. However, about 4 years ago, my grandpa began to reach out. About a month ago, my grandpa had been asking about me and what I was doing with my life and whether I was married or had kids. My aunt responded by calling my grandpa out for wanting to know about me after he supported Casey for what he did. This is when the whole situation changes. My grandpa told my aunt that because I had cheated on Amy with one of her close friends, I deserved to be estranged. My grandpa is a religious nut, so he looks down on cheating. He had been told by my family that after the friend who I allegedly cheated with confessed to Amy, she went to Casey and Sarah for support and comfort. And when I found out about this, I confronted and brutally attacked Casey and Sarah, while Sarah was the one who tried to break me and Casey apart. I did not lay a finger on her, and I did not brutally attack Casey. When my aunt was telling me this, my jaw dropped. I could not believe they hated me so much that they were willing to make up a terrible lie about me and spread it around. My aunt later told Grandpa the full truth on what truly happened, and my aunt told me he was shocked because he always thought Casey was a good kid. My grandpa then asked my aunt for a number, which she declined to give. I figured out why my parents and siblings wanted to get in touch with me. It turns out my grandpa had told my parents and my siblings that if they did not apologize for what they did to me and have me over for the family Christmas dinner, they would be cut off from his will. For context, he is a multi-millionaire. So that is why they reached out to me. Not to apologize about how they all wronged me in the past, but rather because if they did not, they would not get anything from Grandpa. What a bunch of greedy people. After hearing about this from my aunt, I decided to block all of them. Why should I respond to them? At this point, all of them are dead to me. I have a wife to support after what she went through and a family that respects me in my in-laws. However, this does not end here, as 3 days after New Year's Eve, I received a call from an unknown number on my work phone. I'm used to getting calls from unknown numbers because of my career, and when I picked up, I heard my grandfather's voice. He most likely got my number from my company website. The first thing he did was apologize for not trying to get in contact with me for the past 8 years. He told me he was sorry that he could not be there for important events such as graduation, my wedding, and the birth of my daughter. I was not really close to him before, so him cutting me off did not bother me. Later in the call, he told me he was so disgusted with the rest of my family that he is cutting them off his will and adding me to it. I honestly do not know how to feel about that, as the money would be helpful, but at the same time, I do not want him to use this as a way to force a relationship between me and my daughter. We talked for about half an hour. The way the call went made me think that perhaps I could build a good relationship with my grandpa, but then he told me something that got me really pissed. He told me that he was disappointed in that my daughter had not taken the family name. For context, after I got married to my wife, the issue of what last name to use as a couple came up. For some legal reasons, I was unable to change my last name to my wife's last name, but we decided as a couple that all of our future children would have her last name. I at this point unloaded on my grandpa, calling him a senile old man and many other hurtful things, and told him to never contact me ever again. The audacity of this man to say that after what I went through is something. I will not let him use the money I received in the will to control me. Even if I receive the money, I will donate it to a local charity, but he is a man of false promises, so this is unlikely. These past few weeks have been really tough for me, and I hope to make it to the other side. My wife has privated her Facebook account, and her in-laws have done the same. What they do to try to contact me is beyond me. Hell, they would probably hire a private detective to try and find me. I believe they do not know where I live, but you never know. I have thought of getting a restraining order, but given that there are lawyers within the family, means getting a restraining order will be hard. I did not really get any time to answer any questions given in my last post before it was deleted for some reason. I will do my best to answer any questions for the next day or two, but after this, I am done using Reddit for a while. Thank you all for your advice, and I wish you all the best in this new year. And it's one of those updates that's incredibly sad, but in some ways we always see as a positive, because OP's discovered what their family is really like, and they're not letting them control them with money. And it's incredibly toxic that the family just wanted to come back in to get their hands on Grandpa's money in the end. And I wonder what Grandpa will do with that money now. No one wants anything to do with it, apparently. Well, apart from that family, they will if they do get their hands on it, but will Grandpa go down that road? I do wonder. And it's one of those situations I would love to be a fly on the wall in that house when they found out, Grandpa's cut them off, just to see their faces. But to cover a couple more comments on this update. So, Cisse Vaughn says, I'm so sorry for your loss, OP. I can't begin to imagine the pain you and your wife must be experiencing right now. Your family is just absolutely chock full of some of the worst arseholes I've ever heard of, and the fucking audacity of them is unmatched. They do not deserve any more of your energy. Fuck them all. I really hope they don't pursue you anymore and you can focus on your family at home. Thank you for taking the time to update us, and I will hold your family in the light. Diligent Brick 5023 says it got taken down because it reached its karma limits. Good for you, OP. Money with strings is awful. Hug your wife. I miscarried and it was awful. Love your family and put time, energy and love into those that love you back. You know all of this, but good for you. Wishing you the best. As Santos1234 says, I'm sorry for what you've been through and for the loss of your child. Remember, you have support and a family that loves you. You're wanted and loved by them. Even if your parents and siblings aren't those people, you are not alone. Seek professional support and help for yourself and your wife. It's a lot you've gone through. And one more from Requiem, who says, I wish you a better 2022 and I sympathize with you and your wife. Focus on you and her for as long as you both need to heal, and try to put to rest as best as you can the actions of your birth family, as they are no longer a thread in the ball of yarn of your life, not if you don't want them to be. Family is what you make it. You never have to bow down to the people who brought you into this world just because they did. And as much as it goes against the grain of everything we try to tell our children, you do not need to forgive. You do not need to forget. You can just bury them and move on. Time is precious to us. No need to waste any on people who view you as cash and not a person. Your grandfather was trying, in his own way, to reconnect, but as you saw, most likely from the way he's been treated due to his wealth, it was always going to be on his terms. I'm glad you nipped that in the bud. I wish you two well. You seem to have quite the level head on you. Good luck. Now, what do you guys make of this story? How would you react if you was OP in this situation? Being disowned all those years ago and finally finding out that, they didn't want to reconnect with you in any way. All they wanted to do is get their hands on like the grandpa's money in this situation. They really wanted nothing to do with you. So, when grandpa did eventually pass away, they'd probably just cast you away once again and disown you. How would you deal with that situation? Anyway, let me know your thoughts on today's stories on the update as well. I would love to hear them if you have a moment of your time to share them. It's always appreciated. Thank you for your love, time, and support towards the channel. It really does mean the world to me and keeps me, producing videos every single day. Thank you so much. Much love, and I hope to see you in the next one.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my teeth up, wash my face, throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. Let's go.